I'm Warren Stanley, and for at least a few more minutes, I'm privileged to be your current chairman, and I want to thank you very much for coming this morning. We'll probably have a few late stragglers that will be coming in, but that will be fine. A couple house order pieces of business. When you came in, there was a sign-in sheet, and if you haven't, I'd appreciate you sometime on the way out signing in. This gives us a better ability of assuring that a quorum was officially formed for the meeting. If you have cell phones, you've heard this one a million times before, please turn them off so that the ringing does not disrupt our meeting. We appreciate that. So with that, I want to officially gavel in the Surplus Line Association California annual meeting. And again, thank you so much for coming. I know that all of you have paying jobs as opposed to this, and we realize that making the trek is some sacrifice, and we're very appreciative. I'd like to first introduce the head table. I'll just do this in order here. To my left, Joy Irvin, the director of the stamping office. To her left is Mr. Les Ross. Les is our secretary treasurer. To his left is Ted Pierce, the executive director of the Surplus Line Association. And to his left is Jim Woods, our general counsel with Dewey LaBeouf. The first order of our business is to read the resolution, which I will have Mr. Les Ross come up momentarily and read. I just want to preface the fact that the resolution has been a part of your association for decades. It has been amended from time to time. It is taken seriously. We read it at every executive director's meeting. We read it at every committee meeting. We read it at every formal function, which includes our annual meeting, and Mr. Ross will recite it now.
Thank you, Warren. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. When involved in meetings or other activities of the association, members of the association should be mindful of the antitrust laws and not engage in discussions or conduct with the purpose or effect, directly or indirectly, of fixing or stabilizing premiums or producer compensation, engaging in bid rigging or false quotes for insurance, engaging in potential anti-competitive conduct or activities that could adversely affect the cost, quality, or availability of insurance products or services, or engaging in any other anti-competitive conduct or activities affecting their businesses or the business of insurance. Members are advised that violations of state or federal antitrust laws may result in civil and/or criminal penalties, and that any member acting contrary to the intent of this resolution shall be subject to the disciplinary action under the association's constitution. Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
There'll be a test on that later. It's like the Pledge of Allegiance. You have to recite it independently. So, we have a formal meeting today, as we did in San Francisco a couple days ago, so I will ask for your cooperation. And the first order of business is that I am imploring someone from the audience to make a motion that we waive the reading of the last minutes. Would somebody please do so? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you for that assistance. I have a few opening comments before we move on to the agenda that we have scheduled for you this morning. We will try to keep it moving. You'll be receiving some focused, brief presentations by all the members of the panel as regards their respective spheres of responsibilities. It has been truly a privilege to serve as your chairman this past year. It has been an exceedingly active year. I think we have accomplished a lot. At the beginning of the year, it was the chair's responsibility to appoint a number of committee chairmen, and I would like to first thank them for their contribution. Mr. John Edak, who is sitting in the front row, was the chair of our stamping committee. This is the committee that oversees the core functions of your association, as well as it is the budgetary driving arm of your operation, and I'll touch upon that later in some remarks. Pam Quillisi, who I believe is also here in the audience, chaired our automation committee. This was a committee that has been extraordinarily active for a number of consecutive years. In addition, we had a change of personnel at the top of our IT functions, and Pam was of extreme assistance in providing a smooth and workable transition. Hank Haldeman, who is also present, chaired our legislative committee. Hank has been our eyes and ears in Sacramento and has dutifully tried to point out areas of potential problems as well as opportunities in the meanderings of Sacramento, which is, I can assure you, no easy task. Bob Gilbert, also present in the audience, chaired the Education Committee. I hope that many of you have had an opportunity to avail yourselves to the education opportunities of the SLA in terms of the continuing education classes that we host throughout the state, mainly in the Bay Area and down here in Los Angeles, but in other venues also. It's his committee in conjunction with Vienna Murray, who runs the education department in the San Francisco operation, putting together those forums, and we think that they have been well received. They've been generally well attended, and I want to thank him for his efforts. Finally, Jerry Sullivan, who chaired our Admitted Market Liaison Committee. This committee actually had quite a bit of activity this past year in context with some fire surcharge possibilities pertaining to the marketplace, and Jerry did a superb job of assuring that our interests were looked out for, and I think that this will be an ongoing activity as we move into 2009. I would like to thank the two officers that served with me, the Vice Chair, Mr. John Edact, who's sitting in front, who I will be introducing a little bit later in the program, and Mr. Les Ross, our Secretary-Treasurer. Both gentlemen worked well with me, which is kudos, because it's not easily done sometimes. And we had an exceedingly successful year. I want to thank the nominating committee that helped put together the slate of officers that I will introduce later in the program. And the executive committee, the directors who have served with me in this past year, everybody in non-paid positions gave a considerable amount of their time and energy to assist your association. In the past year, the executive committee and the stamping committee approved an increase in the stamping fee from 0.125 to 0.225 effective January 1, 2009. I'd like to comment on this because this was an action that was taken exceedingly with due diligence and very seriously. The stamping committee met in September of 2008 and reviewed all of our expenses and looked at the projections of premiums filed and other issues. And it was simply determined that we needed to have an increase in the stamping fee in order to assure that the expenses of the association could be met. I want to emphasize, and I'm rather pleased to emphasize, the following fact. That is that the expenses of the Surplus Line Association in aggregate did not go up from 2007 to 2008, and in fact, they have remained relatively flat for the last 4 years. So the stamping fee increase did not have its origins in any increase in expenses. It had its origins in the fact that we are filing fewer premiums, lower premiums, fewer number of transactions, and in our current environment, both the insurance cycle environment as well as the economic environment, we had to raise the stamping fee. This past fall, the SLA membership was asked to vote on amendments to the Constitution as approved by the Executive Committee. An affirmative yes vote among 2/3 of eligible voters was achieved, and the SLA Constitution was successfully amended November 1st, 2008. Eligible voters are defined as resident surplus line broker licensees who have filed one or more SLA-1 or SLA-2 forms with the association within the 12 months immediately preceding the date of the annual meeting. As regards the organization of the association, the amendment was needed because the previous Constitution was out of date. For example, the old Constitution allowing voting only by U.S. Postal Service or facsimile transmission, electronic male was not recognized. The previous Constitution also divided the membership and related quorum requirements as between Northern and Southern California. It was actually as if there were two states. This may have had some necessity and made sense in 1938 when your association was formed, but no longer has any apparent purpose. The SLA Executive Committee also saw through the transfer of the employee pension fund from the Principal Financial Group to John Hancock USA. The committee will now have greater authority over the investment and management of the pension fund. Simply put, we believe that this will improve the yield that we have historically received on this fund and gives us a little bit more flexibility. In 2008, the SLA signed a contract extension with an international software development firm. The software developer is working with the internal SLA IT development team to create a new electronic automation system that allows surplus line brokers to make their stamping office filings electronically and will eventually provide for the electronic submission of financial documents by insurance companies applying for eligibility on the surplus line insurers in California, also known as our Leslie list. We have been in this project for quite a considerable period of time. It has been unfolding in various pieces and stages. Fortunately, we haven't had any glip. It's my hope and anticipation that we should have conclusion at some time in the current calendar year. And with that project behind us, the resource dedication that we have made to the project would come to an end. In conclusion, your association is an organization that has competent management, good governance, and ongoing excellent relations with the brokers, the non-admitted carriers, the admitted market, the California Insurance Department, the California Legislature, and the consuming public we serve. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in pretty good shape. I would like to now invite the Secretary-Treasurer to once again take the podium and proceed with a financial report.